who strengthens and empowers me. She was totally invested in the lives of her grandchildren, Will and Ava. I realized how blessed I am that I had such wonderful grandparents to take me places and listen to me when I needed advice or just an ear. Mom was that comfort for Will and Ava, as if they were her own. I promised Mom when the end was near that I would do everything in my power to love and protect all of the family and her sanctuary at Rivatone Farm to the best of my ability, and that I would do so remembering how she would want things done. I also promised her that I would find a good man to marry who she would approve of. I also tried to give her peace by explaining how I was already watching broken relationships mend because of her being sick. It is beautiful to see people coming together in remembrance of her. It was an honor to take care of my mother in her last days here on earth. She hadn't eaten or drunken anything in a week, and we were wondering what she might be holding out for. We were told that she could still hear us even though she was unconscious, so we tried to comfort her with the right words, even going as far as to let her be alone for an hour in case she wanted to pass alone. On March 4th, around 3:45 p.m., I looked up at her and I saw this amazing smile on her face. She hadn't moved her mouth in days, several days. If she could have, she would have, because her mouth was so dry. I would put sponges soaked with water in her mouth to keep it moist. So needless to say, I jumped up and I started watching her breathing and realized it had slowed down considerably. I sent for Scarlett and Tom to come in and be by her side. Along with my grandmother and other family, we watched Mom pass on to what seemed to be the most beautiful and awesome place Mom had ever seen. The aura around her face and the peace in the room was clear evidence to us that she was being welcomed into the gates of heaven. That was the best gift that God could give us, the reassurance that Mom is in heaven and that we can see her again one day. We shall not ever question God's existence again. I do not consider the fact that Mom passed on March 4th a coincidence, but rather a last request from Mom. You see, March 4th is a command. We must all march forth, not to wallow in despair or confusion, but to have sound mind and press towards our goals, which hopefully line up with God's will for our lives. Mom's favorite Bible verse was Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future.
So I just wanted to pre-record it because there's no way I'd be able to stand up there without crying. So I just wanted to say a few things about my mom and how wonderful she was. On March 4th, heaven gained an amazing soul. I never thought the moment would come, but I'm so glad that I was able to be there as she took her last breath. My boyfriend Jacob and I prayed together that my mom would go peacefully. We asked God to give us a sign when she made it to heaven, and as she passed away, she had a radiant, glowing smile on her face. It was truly amazing. I find peace knowing that she is with our Lord. This past year, I luckily transferred from Radford, which is about 4 hours away, to VCU, which is only like 45 minutes, and it made it so much easier to come home on the weekends so that I could take care of and spend time with my mom. During this time, we became best friends. We have always been very close, but during this time, we felt closer than ever. Mom always taught me the important things in life, especially relying on and loving Jesus because he will always see you through. Jeremiah 29:11 is her favorite verse, which talks about God having a plan for each and every one of us with hope and a future. She also knew me so well because she thought the same way I did. She was the only one who knew exactly what to say to make me feel better, and she was never afraid to tell me like it really is. She did everything in her power to make all of her kids and everyone else happy. She was the type of person that would always put others before herself. I admire how strong, hardworking, and tough she was. Nothing could bring her down. There was literally nothing she couldn't do. She was a super mom. She was an inspiration, and she was the light of my world. Although she physically won't be able to see my wedding or meet my kids one day, I know she'll be there in spirit watching over me, and I'll tell them all about her. I love her, and I miss her more than words can describe, but I find peace knowing that I'll see her again. She was such an inspiration to many. Hey everyone, I'm Scarlett, the youngest.
I'm not sure what I could say that could possibly add to what we've heard. And so in the interest of time, I'll keep my remarks really short. It is a privilege to have been Sue's friend and Sue's pastor, and the midwife who helped birth her and her family into knowing who Jesus Christ is. I also was one of Sue's tenants at one point, in fact, twice, as a matter of fact. I thoroughly enjoyed the peace of being on Rivatone, which is her farm, and watching Tom and Eva, and then Scarlett, whom we called Scoo, watching them grow up. I can't tell you how proud I am of you. You just have no idea. Sue came to see me when I got medevaced from overseas. She came to Walter Reed, visited me as a patient, she and many of you. And she brought me Hungarian goulash. She, of course, snuck it in, I'm sure you realize. And I'm telling you that it was one of the most sacred meals I've ever eaten. She was a fabulous cook. But that was one of the best meals I ever remember eating. And the love that it expressed was so enormous. The things that I'll miss most about Sue is that she was doggedly determined. A woman of few words, but lots of eye rolls. I wish I could imitate that look. Sue was nobody's fool. She could see through people to the point where she realized, I have to have integrity. I have to be authentic. There is no other option because I can see through people and I know who they really are. And she was not as good as she wasn't so good at being stoic, where she would conceal her feelings. She wore them right on her face. And then she would roll her eyes, thinking, seriously? She had few words to say, but when she had something to say, she was telling you the truth. She kept confidences. She loved deeply. I believe she suffered intensely because she was smart and bright as lightning. And she was so insightful. And even though she was not somebody who expressed emotions easily, She felt them very deeply. I know that she lived to serve her community, her children, her farm. I love the picture on the bulletin